Hello, it's Deborah from the attic. Welcome to this tutorial where I invite you to draw with me. This is what we're going to be drawing, so by the end of the tutorial you will know how to do all of these things, so don't worry about it. I'll get you where we need to go and I'll make it as easy as I possibly can. If you're new here, you're very welcome, and if you're a returning friend, welcome back. If you haven't already, please subscribe, please hit the notification bell, and that way you'll find out every time there's a new video being uploaded, but generally it's every Friday evening I'll be here. If you would like more regular updates, you can follow me on Instagram, and I'll provide all of the links to my social media below this video. In this tutorial we're building on the work that we did before when we drew the little houses. If you haven't seen that video, I'll provide a link up there. You don't need to have seen that in order to do this, but for those who have, you will see how this is an extension of what we learned in that last video. So this time it's plants in pots. This is going to be our worksheet for this tutorial, and as you can see we start very simply. Then we move on to rounded shapes, then we change the angle that we're working at, and that allows us to create these jugs, and then we'll look at different plants, really simple shapes that can be built up so that you end up with a really nice plant in a pot. And you can use these to create bookmarks, or you can use them to decorate maybe the bottom of any journal pages if you wanted to do something along the base of your pages or along the side. I think that's what I might do in some of my journaling. Or of course you can do a little grid of them, and then this would make quite a nice card, and you can put your greeting underneath, maybe happy birthday or good luck or whatever it might be that you want to share with somebody. I've penciled in the images that we're going to work with, but as we go through I'm going to use my pen to ink in so you can see exactly what it is that I've done. And for this first one, if you remember when we did the little houses, it was basically a rectangle and then we did a triangle on the top, and that created our house. And it's pretty much the same with this. We do our two sides, that gives us the width of the pot that we're creating, and then we do a little curved line for the base, and then we do a little curved line at the top like that. And to indicate that this is a pot, we're going to add a little line across the top there. This ellipse shape is something that we'll be doing for all of our pots. It's also something that I'm going to talk about in a future video when I'm not going to tell you what it is yet, but when we use this again, I have got a really good cheat that will help you get this elliptical shape just right. It's easy enough to do it on these little small images that we're drawing today. When you get up to doing wider images where you've got more of an ellipse is required, I'll show you my cheat for how you achieve it. So that's our basic shape. What about if you want to start varying it? Well, we can do that immediately. Instead of having straight sides, this time we have slightly angled sides. They're coming slightly down to a narrow base. We draw a little curve here, and then because this is going to be a pot that has a lid, it's going to be a traditional pot, I'm going to take another line similar to what I've just done at the base, but this time across the top, and I'm going to add another one at whatever height I want it to be across the top there, curving them ever so slightly, and then I complete my pot by putting a nice curved line on the side there. And then of course I need my ellipse on the top, and that's a plant pot. We can begin to add more variation in by making the pots wider, which is what I've done with this one. I always start with the sides and then the curve on the bottom. And that's really where your variation begins. It's the width of these lines, it's the angle that you put them in at, and below here we'll change the angle that we work at. I do my nice little curved line across the top. I do another little curved line across the top there. I bring in this slight curve to make the rim of the pot, and then I add my ellipse across the top. So far so good, we've done pots. What if you wanted to do a basket? Well, it's a very simple shape actually, it's the same as this shape here. So we do our sides, straight down. We do our curve that joins our lines at the bottom. We do our curve that joins the line at the top, and we pop on the ellipse, like that. And then to add the handles, it's a curve. So you could imagine this as being an N, and that's building on my theory that if you can write, you can draw. So we're all familiar with how to make the shape of an N. This time it's a little bit higher, that's all. So we do this shape here and bring it back down onto the basket. That makes it look like this handle is attached to the side of the basket that we are viewing. And to add realism to that, I'm going to make it look as if this is how these little handles are attached. I'm going to add this little triangle, maybe a little shape there. So then to make the handle appear as if there's another one on the opposite side, it's easier this time. We just do an N that comes to about the same height as our first N, but we just contain it to the back of the basket. And I think that's a really attractive shape, and I use it quite a lot in the other drawings that I do further in this tutorial. If you do some curved lines like this, and you'll find you may have to practice them. Don't forget I'm going over a pencil drawing that I've already done. Add your little line at the bottom, then you can add the little line at the top, and we can make the mouth of this pot a little bit smaller. And then to decorate the pot, we can have bands. These can look really effective, and you can add lots of nice colour variation by using these bands. Just make sure that they follow a similar curve to the curve that you have on the bottom of your pot, like this curve here. If it goes a bit wonky, it doesn't matter, because by the time we've drawn a plant into that, nobody will notice. I like wicker pots, and I thought it would be nice if we could build on this shape to create a wicker pot. How do we do this? Well, it's exactly the same. We do these curves on the side, and then we do our curve on the bottom. So all the way through our drawings we're following exactly the same principles. Sides first, whatever angle you choose, fill in the base. Put a little curve on the base to make it give the pot some dimension. This is going to be very similar to how we did our flower pot top. So we do a line across the top that we take slightly further than our curved line edges on the side, and then we do another line along the top here, so you can see how similar it is, and we curve the ends of the line so it finishes like that. Then we put our ellipse in the top of the pot, and then to make this look like wicker, it's all in how we draw some extra lines. So curved lines like this along the rim of the pot will make it look as if this is wicker work. So that's our rim, and just do them all going in the same direction. And then for the body of the pot, we start in the centre. So the centre would be here, and we want a couple of lines to go just either side of where that centre would be. So I draw my lines here, and I give them a curve down towards the base of the pot. That again helps with this concept of dimension, making it look 3D instead of 2D on a page. And then I'm going to add in another line in the gap that I've created between my centre-ish line and my outside line. So it comes down at a slight curve. And if you're looking for a curve to follow this outside curve of your pot, but it's very gentle. It's not exactly the same as that. It sort of comes down a bit straight and then curves round. And we'll do the same with this. And this time my eye is following the curve on the left of the pot here, but always bringing them down to a curve in the bottom. I'm not bringing the lines down straight. To make it look like wicker work then, and to give it some variety, I add in some ever so slightly curved lines all the way around my pot. And I vary mine. You could do yours so that they go like this, and they're exactly the same all around the pot for some reason, and there's no real logic to it. I like to do them sort of alternate heights to each other, so this will be lower, this will be a little higher, this will be lower, this will be higher. You can do whatever you think looks right to your eye. So that is our wicker basket. Now I want to introduce you to a new shape. So we've done straight lines, we've done lines that come in to the base, we've done some curved lines on both of these pots, and this time we're going to do a different angle. So this time we're going to do our sides coming slightly out as they come from the top to the base. I'm going to fill in my bottom as always, that base line, then I'm going to fill in my ellipse, and then I can give this pot some decoration just by adding some straight lines. This shape then lends itself nicely to moving on to do a glass vase. So I'm going to start edges coming out like this. I'm not going to start there, that was a mistake because I was too busy talking and not concentrating. So I've got my two sides and I've got my base. You can see why I had to do these in pencil first. If I was trying to draw these with my pen and talk at the same time, everything would be rubbish. So then let's go back to this edge. I'm just taking this out like that. So I'm kicking these out at a slight angle, and then I'll join the top of them. And all the way through with these, it's less about actually drawing and it's more about knowing where to put the lines and then joining them up. And I find that far less intimidating than thinking about sitting down and drawing, say, a jug. Once you've seen how to do this shape, maybe you can begin to see how I developed this shape. But to complete this and make it look like it's glass, I'm going to do a slightly dotted line or a broken line at the base. Now this is like the ellipse on the top, but I'm doing it on the base and it's broken line. And then down the sides, to indicate that this is glassware, I do these broken lines just on the inside of my outside edge lines. And that then gives the appearance of being glass, and you can amplify that by adding certain plants and showing that the stem comes all the way down, and that, along with those little broken lines that we've added, indicates that that is glass. If you're happy with this shape, we can move on to this. Now I've done two of these jugs, one where the handle is slightly behind the pot, and one where you can actually see where the handle joins the pot, so it gives the appearance that the pot is at a slightly different angle. We begin again with the sides, and this you'll see is exactly the same start as we had on this pot, our glass vase. We do our curved line at the base, and now at the top one of our lines kicks out similar to this, but then this where the jug will pour, the spout, is slightly different. It's a longer line and it's at a shallower angle than this line is, and it's slightly higher. So this line finishes here, the spout will finish higher, and then again join them up, make the ellipse like this. The handle is going to be easier than you think it's going to be. This is basically an oval, but it's only part of the oval that is visible. So if you want to build some muscle memory before you commit your pencil to the page, just draw this shape in, just imagine that shape going in, and that will just help you build muscle memory. So now I can go and do my handle, and I'm going to show you a really good trick. So when people usually draw a handle, let's turn this page over and do a pretend handle. Let's say this is the edge of our jug. So normally when you draw, and it's the same with a cup, so if you're trying to draw the handle of a jug or a cup, I think we all think we have to do this. And it never quite looks right, does it? So try this. There's the edge of our jug. Here's our handle, which is this oval shape. Now instead of going all the way around with our line, I'm going to take a line from here and I'm going to just blend it in with the top. I'm going to curve it in to the top like this. And I stop right at the peak of that curve. And then, just below where that curve is, I bring another line down like that. And I think that is more realistic looking than this, and it's also easier. So this is worth trying, because this is a shape that will be really useful to you for all sorts of things, cup handles, any other kind of handles. I can't think of anything else other than cup handles, but I know that this is something that I've used quite a lot myself. So to return to the handle on our jug, I'm going to do exactly what I've just shown you there. I'm going to take it up to the top, to the centre, and then slightly below that, I'm just going to bring a straight line back down to the jug as well. So, and this is a straight line, apart from where it's curved at that apex of the curve on the handle. Let's do this jug with the angle of the handle, which is a lovely thing to say, the angle of the handle, aimed towards us. Now, because I've done this in pencil, I know to ink under where my handle attaches. We do the base, we do our sharp angle, and we do our longer angle, and add in this curve on the top to make it look like it's an open vessel. Now I'm going to do my handle like I did on the first jug, and I'm going to do my curve and then my other line coming down. And to make this look like it's attached, all I've done is drawn a sort of a little rectangle that captures where the handle appears on the jug. And that's all it is, it's just a rectangle. And yet it looks as if the handle of the jug is now towards us. So it gives us a different perspective to this one, where obviously the join is further around on the jug. And I think that's quite fun, because it means that if you're going to draw a jug, you don't have to draw the same aspect of it every single time. So those are our pots, and I hope you can see how we've built on the knowledge and muscle memory that we developed when we were doing our little houses in that earlier video. But what are you going to put in the plant pots? Well, let's start with some really simple plants. Now, these really are simple plants, and I don't know the names of any of these plants really, because they're sort of made up, and it's basically the simplest way of drawing flowers that will suit these containers that I could think of. So we start with a straight line for doing this, which is, I guess, something like the plant honesty, and then draw a little bubble, little circle around where the branches end, and include part of that branch end. Let's do another really simple plant. Now this time we're coming from a single stem that would go down into your pot, and we're doing this sort of elongated, flattened Y shape. Now we can have little branches coming off here as randomly as we like. And then at the end of them we're going to put some little tiny leaves. They're sort of teardrops, but not quite. They're a bit more flattened at the end than teardrops. But these really are just indicative leaves. This isn't necessarily a real plant that you might have seen. This is just to give the impression of a plant. And once it's positioned in your pot, your eye accepts it. And it's good to have a ready supply of different types of plants at your fingertips to help you when you're just doodling your little pots. One of the simplest things to draw is what looks like lavender. So I started with 4 stems, 2 tall ones on the outside, 2 shorter ones in the centre, each on slight curves. And then these leaves just sit opposite each other, and they couldn't be easier to draw. It's almost like a figure 8. But this is a very useful one to do, because this will go in any pot. It's really quick and simple, and we can vary this shape. Once we've got it in our heads, we can turn it upside down and use it as a trailing plant, and I'll show you that in a little moment. So that's our lavender in inverted commas, and then let's do something that's got some more leafy action to it, such as this one here. This starts from a single stem, and it's a sort of a curve, like a shallow letter S. And then we can have some places where branches stick out from the main stem, like that. And this time our leaves are sort of like inverted versions of this one here, where we had a sort of a bulbous end and a teardrop shape where the top of the teardrop joined the branch here. In this, it's almost the reverse. So the pointy bit of the leaf is actually facing away. So we have this curve where the leaf joins onto the stem, and then another little curve here, and then do a curve across the top and just join it up. So again, we're not trying to draw a leaf, we're putting in guidelines that will then allow us to just join up lines to create leaf shapes. And as we come down the branch, the leaves are a little bit smaller, like that. Broad leaves are useful. Let's do some strong stems at the bottom here. So that's the direction that our leaves are going to take. And the first leaf that I draw is the one that's going to be right at the front, and this is going to remain at the front. And the same on this side. So any leaves that I draw after this to fill in the gaps are all going to sit behind these two leaves. Let's start at the sides, because that's an easy place to start. We just draw the impression of a leaf coming out of the back. If that leaf was to continue, you can see it would hit a wide base around about here, but because it's hidden behind this leaf, we've only got to do half the job. We've just got to do the bit that's visible, and the same with the one on this side. And then to fill in the gap in the centre, I've got a leaf here, and then further behind everything right at the back is this leaf. And then to make them look different to the other leaves, we can do these lines across them, and I think that gives you the impression that these are those big dark green waxy leaves, quite different to anything that we've drawn so far. So that's our broad plant. And then we can do a sort of an aloe vera plant. I say sort of because it's only representational. And this is quite a nice easy one. It's the same principle of starting off with two big somethings at the front and then building behind it. In this case, our two big somethings are two big leaves. And because this is an aloe vera plant, the curved part of the leaves has some hatching on it, just some little marks taken out of it. And then a curve down to the front. And then we do the same but on the opposite side. So we do a big curve with some little dings taken out there, make it look a bit more leafy, and then a little curved line to join it back down to the front like that. Then we're going to do something in the centre. So we do this big leaf in the centre, take out some dings in the leaf like that, give it some interest and texture. And then on either side of that we're going to do pretty much these leaves again, but smaller. So a little bit of a ding out. And these are just V grooves that I'm doing into the leaf. And the same here, some V grooves. And then a curve back down. That's aloe vera. Then a cactus. A cactus starts off, if you can just see my faint line, as a circle. That's how I started my cactus off. Then I decided how much of it I wanted to be visible, and I put a pencil line across the area that I wanted to be the differentiation between the top of the cactus and where any pot might sit. And then I just did similar U-shapes, little U-shapes like this. And these are what we did in the sea scene drawing tutorial from a few weeks ago. And I'll link that up there as well so you can see that. And these just give our cactus a bit of a sense of being prickly. And then down the centre we have a line. Down this side we have a slightly curvy line, and the same here. Now my filming cut out just as I was finishing my little cactus, but what I was saying is that we add little notches, V-shapes, little thorns coming out of these lines, and the same with a little semicircle on the side, and that way it gives it the impression of being something that's quite prickly. Now the next two that I want to show you is how you can do plants that appear to flow outside of the pot, and this is probably the trickiest, but when I break it down for you, hopefully you'll see that it's very, very manageable. we start with our pot as we always do, and we have a little curved line here. And at this point I'm going to stop. Now when you're doing your drawing, you wouldn't ink anything in until the whole thing had been done. Obviously I've already penciled these in, so I'm going to go ahead and ink these in to show you. Now to begin with, what you really need is a cluster of leaves in the top of your pot, and that's quite simple to achieve. And the leaves that we're doing are sort of heart shapes, like this. Don't know if you can hear lots of rattling and things, but it's very, very windy and stormy around the attic at the moment. So these are almost heart shapes, not quite heart shapes, and they have this little curved line that helps you understand the shape of this leaf. And all you do is fill in space, and they can go in any direction and they can go in any angle. And I tend to do a sort of a fringe of leaves around the outside, and that then gives me a good solid base for filling in the rest of it. So now that I've got my base fringe of leaves, let's pop another one in here, I can begin to fill out the centre, and I do that by having leaves coming up in different directions, because that makes it look as if those leaves are facing away from you, and they can be facing back towards you as well. So it really can be as random as you want. And then the final leaf sits in here. This is why you need to draw these out in pencil before you ink in your pot, because if the leaves are going to fall over the front of the pot, you don't want the line of the rim there inked in. I'm doing some extra random leaves that just sort of pop to the front of the pot like this. Normally I would probably have some leaves in here to fill in this gap, but I want you to see the relationship between the leaves and the pots, which is why I haven't done that this time. And then to join them onto what else is happening with the leaves, you just do a line. You give them a stem. Once you've got all your leaves in place, then you know you can finish inking in your pot. A little bit there, and then that ellipse would just be visible in the background. This one needs a little stem to connect it. And that's how you can begin to do leaves full of leaves full of pots, pots full of leaves. This one is probably a little bit simpler. I've made the pot higher and thinner because I think that gives me a little bit more space to show you these leaves. And these leaves are basically upside down lavender leaves. So this time I start with a little frond coming down from the front of the pot like this, and then I'll do another one, then I'll do a line like this, bring some leaves outside of the pot on that side. I'll do the same on this side, and then in the centre here, these are pretty much random little leaves, and then I can begin to add in the leafy shapes, and this is where they're like butterfly wings. You just do the same on either side of the branch until you get to the bottom. When you come to these ones at the top where the branch comes out of the pot like that, your leaves will go up the way, and then you follow the root of your branch, and eventually you will see that they come round to being upside down again. So we follow the line of the branch, and as it curves, our leaves curve until they're going upside down. These random ones are exactly that. They're exactly the same type of leaf on either side of the branch, and a little one at the top there. And then we can begin to make them random. You don't need to worry about this, your eye will accept it. And then some of these leaves aren't attached to anything at all, but they give the plant a greater sense of movement They're like little teardrop shapes. That line can go to there. And then when I'm happy with this, when I think I've filled in all the gaps I need to fill in, I can finish drawing my pot. And this pot has got this rim. I'll just join it up, making sure that I don't take my line in front of any of the leaves. And then that helps give your pot a real sense of dimension, because these leaves and fronds are just falling out of the top of the pot. What other leaves could you do? What if you want to do something that comes straight up out of your pot? Well, you could try these, and these are a straight line. I've done 3 of these, so they're 3 straight lines, and then they sort of fan out with long thin leaves from about halfway up the top of that stem, and then I complete them just by almost adding an ellipse. It's almost like what we do at the top of our pots, but they then look like, I don't know, ferns or tall spiky leaves. And then when we get to the second one, we do exactly the same. We can take the lines over the previous plant. That's okay, because these are so slim and skinny that they don't really interfere with each other very much. And there's so much going on with these branches that what I found is that my eye just can't be bothered trying to sort out where leaves are going behind each other or in front of each other, and it all just works out fine. So there we go, some nice simple leaves. What about this one? Now this is a bonsai tree. Now we know that we can do the pot. The pot is no problem at all because we've done loads of these by now. So we know to do our sides, we know to do our base. I've obviously cheated and put that bit in first. And then you stop. You don't put in the ellipse. You stop at that point. I'm going to add a little band here just for interest. And then to draw this, it's basically upside down V shapes. So let me show you. This is the branch here, and then they sort of end in these deep V's. And I did 3, and I took them up to where there would be a branch beginning. And then I took the branch and made it go into a Y shape, like this. And then I decided I would have another branch off to the side. So that's how I did the trunk. To do the foliage on the top, it's just like fluffy clouds. So think of it as fluffy clouds, draw it around the branch, maybe add in a little bit of a lumpy bit in there, and then you can do more foliage behind the first piece. And that is all these are. But you bring your cloud over the branch so that the branch appears to be just disappearing into your cloud or foliage, however you choose to think about it. I think clouds because I think this is how, as a child, we would have drawn clouds. They were just these lumpy things. And if we're going, if we're using my theory of learning to write as you're a child and how difficult that was to learn the muscle memory and learn the shapes, then if you can think of it as a cloud and that works for you, certainly made it a lot easier for me. Here is a little bowl that has succulents in it. Oh, I've just realised. Let's finish this off. So we take the ellipse just around the back like that. That's our bonsai. So back to our little bowl. We've got some slightly slanting sides and the curve. And at this point I stop because I know some of these succulents are going to spill out to the front. Now these are any sort of random shape. The 2 at the front that I always start with when I'm doing this plant here or this type of thing here, if I know they're going to spill out the front, I always start with 2, and then it gives me a place to build from. And succulents have got some funny shapes, or certainly my succulents have, and this is how we can just build any random shape that we want. And it's very similar to what we did with these leaves here. We can have them going in any direction that we want. But I start out with my fringe at the front, and then I build a sort of a second layer. And I'm trying to make random shapes and not make them all pointy. So that's my second layer. Then I go and do a third layer. And they just sort of sit behind each other quite happily, like this, and they're beginning to get a little bit pointy, as some succulents are. And as I complete my sort of final layer, got those nice points on them, and here's something that comes out at the side. And as you can see, there's no rim here to complete, it's done, but I'm doing a little bit of decorating here with some little dots, double line of dots, to make it look pretty. This pot is very similar to what we did with the glass jug. We come down on the sides, we do a curved base, and then we bring the edges up a little bit. And because these branches or flowers or foliage are going to go straight out the top of this, so I can complete my bowl. And actually I'm going to complete it this way too, by adding a little bit of decoration. And you can begin to really experiment with this and add any kind of decoration that you want on your pots. And that way no two pots will ever look the same again. These fronds are actually very similar to what we drew when we did the seascape scene. Seascape scene, that's so difficult to say, but these are pretty much the same. They stand straight up. They're not complete ovals, but they've got this little pointy bit at the top. And I start out, as you can see, with my two, and then I can build on the back of that. I'm trying to make sure that these are a little bit random. I don't want everything to be symmetrical. And I'm also happy for some of these leaves to sit behind some of the other ones, as with these two here. This one comes in front, this one sits behind, and then I can just finish off how these look by filling in these gaps like that. And then to make them look extra super duper leafy, I can add a curve, not on all of them, just on some of them. Makes them look proper leafy. We're coming back to our glass vase again. So this has got a nice curve on the sides like this. We've got a nice curve on the base, and this comes out at a slight angle. And I have my ellipse, and because it's glass, I know that I don't need to worry about glass. I can draw in the top, and I can go to the bottom and do my little broken line to indicate that this is glass and you can see through it. And then I've got my broken lines down the side like this. And these are very simple flowers. The stems sit almost to the bottom of my vase like this. And then the flowers that actually are on the top of these are just a dot, some height from where the stem is, and then it's like a little explosion of lines. And on the end of each of those little lines, you can add another little dot to make it look like it's a thing. Could be a sort of a dandelion thing, perhaps. Who knows? But it doesn't matter, because this is a nice easy way to use a simple plant or flower to indicate that what you've drawn is a glass vase. And the final one is this one here. And these are funny little leaves. This plant definitely has a name, because I actually found an image that I found a photograph, and I thought, well, I'd like to do that as a flower. So let's just start with our pot. Simple sides, slightly curved base. Then I'm going to stop. Then I'm going to go and do a couple of these random, really random little shapes. Now normally I do two side by side. This time I've done two sort of side by side with each other, one on top of the other. But the joy of this plant is just how easy it is, because it really is quite a random sort of, sometimes it's an oval, sometimes it's sort of a heart shape, sometimes it really isn't that at all. But what I love about this plant, and why I wanted to do it, is for these bits here, these little flying saucers. So when these circles that we're seeing face on here go on their sides, as they pop out from the centre of the plant, they're all really oval. And I just thought that was great fun. It'd be really good fun to draw. And they're nice and quick, because they've got fewer rules than some of the other plants that we've drawn. So I'll do a few around the outside, and then I can just join them up as randomly as I like with these long, thin branches. Or stems. They're not really branches, they're not thick enough to be branches. They're more like little stems. There's a little cheeky one in there. And that's it. And now I can fill in the rim of my pot, and I can do the ellipse at the back. We've whizzed through loads of variations for you, but I hope that you will use those to create your own greetings cards or journal details or bookmarks. And once you start doing these, you'll realise just how many variations there are that you can do. This bookmark, I don't think replicates anything really that we've done. It's all slightly different, and that's the fun of this. And if you think of these as doodles rather than drawings, I think that again takes the pressure off. As soon as somebody says, let's draw a thing, that sign kind of suggests that you've got to pay real attention and be really careful about it. If someone says, hey, let's just doodle, it takes the pressure off. So happy doodling. I really hope that you enjoyed this video. Please let me know in the comments if you'd like to see any more of these, and if you've got any suggestions for things that you'd like to draw, let me know. I'll add them to the list that includes teacups, sharks, dresses, all sorts of other things I can't remember at the moment. But I'm going to say thank you very much for your time as always. Thank you for watching, and until we meet again, stay safe and take care.